Hello, this video is a part 2, where I'm sewing the inside of this coat. If you haven't seen the previous video, it will be linked on screen and in the description if you want to see that. If you're not interested or have already seen it, then let me explain what my idea for this is. Okay, so currently the coat is missing the inner lining, the bottom consists of raw edges, the shoulders can't hold their shape, and I kind of want to bring back the wing design that was scrapped in the previous video. But instead of cutting it out from the bottom, I'm thinking of having it sewn inside the coat like a hidden feature. A small spoiler for later, but so you're not going in this blind, I drew this to help visualize what I'm thinking. When I started, I wasn't sure how I was going to make the wings, but I ended up going for a night sky kind of feel later on. Before I can cut out the segments for the inner lining, I need a guide. This should be simple, as I can just use the pattern that I already made for the coat and just flip it. The only parts that would need altering were the two pieces inside the front of the coat, as they would be shorter since I didn't want them to be visible from the outside. I'll just locate where I left my pattern pieces and go from there. Oh. Good thing is that I still have the original pattern pieces I made for the coat. Bad news is that I didn't organise any of it. Why did I put the pieces I used in the same bag as the pieces I didn't? I found most of them easily, but for some pieces where I had multiple versions, like the back panels, I had to watch my previous video back and try and figure it out. The fabric for the lining is called Minky, I believe, and is the first fabric of this coat that I bought new. It looks velvety without the rough feel and is very soft. I cut 8 panels out and laid them out so you can kind of see how they'll be sewn together. I also provided an in-depth explanation to go along with it. Wow, I lost this piece. Just pretend it's there. We got the back piece, we got the armholes. These bits will hook onto that to make it 3D. So informative. Now, you might be thinking, PardusEleos, you ran out of black thread in the last video, how would you sew all this? Okay, so far I've used 2 of these. Oops, sorry. 2 of these, but black obviously, not pink. I already used the black one, so I don't really have them to show you anymore. But I used 2 of these, and then I used a black one of these. And I was so annoyed of having to find random thread in my house. I just bought this one. I told you we need more glitter. Here's my little threads. Here's my progression. Because this better last me. Because I'm not buying any more. Anyway, now I have a massive wall. Is it to scale of mini me? Is it to scale? Oh my goodness. Is it to scale of mini me? There you go. I'm so tired. Does not matter. Also, you may have seen these in my videos. This is pretty. I got it for Christmas. And it's nice to actually have sharp scissors. Anyway, there's my cringe hour mask, and there's my guy. Anyway, let's get into it, I guess. And get into it we will. The first thing I did was mark the seam allowance with tailor's chalk. But since it would rub off as the fabric moved, I sewed along it with a loose running stitch with coloured thread. I pinned the 2 pieces together with 6 pins to stop the material from sliding. Because it was thin and slippery, the 2 pieces still moved around, causing ripples in between the seams. The actual sewing took a very long time. Just look how slow it was. The stitch I was using was a back stitch, and I had to be very intentional with each one. I think sewing this was more difficult than any of the sewing I did previously, purely because of how much the material moved. I needed a flat surface, so I had the fabric on my desk. However, because it was so long, I had to half hang it off over the side, which probably contributed to the tension being off in some areas. A plus, however, is that I could just set my phone to time-lapse and have a great view of it all coming together. At this point I took a break, and when I came back I didn't realise that my camera was slightly unfocused. So if you're wondering why this video looks like a memory, that's why. Here everything is together. It's a lot more wrinkly than I intended. I was going to iron the seams anyways, so decided to try iron the whole thing and see if that fixed anything. Because the material was thinner, it was much easier to press the seams down with the iron and a little bit of steam. The wrinkles smoothed out a little bit, but were still there. Truthfully, I couldn't be bothered to unstitch it all and try fix it, so I just moved on. When the time came for me to sew the inner lining into the coat, I was a little intimidated. I wasn't sure how I'd get it on, as everything I've done so far I did inside out and flipped it so the seam allowance was on the inside, but I couldn't do that here. I opted to sew the armholes closed on the inner lining, and then sew them directly onto the sleeves, as that was the only bit that the placement really mattered. This took 2 tries before I figured out that I needed to pin it right way up and then hold it to the side and kind of half flip it inside out to sew bits on. The first one was a little easier as I could maneuver the fabric out of the way while working on it. The second was more difficult as the fabric was being held down by the other end. I then sewed the shoulder and the back of the neck piece. I can't figure out what that's actually called. To attach the sides, I sewed what I believe is called a ladder stitch. I folded the ends of the 2 fabrics to the inside, then stitched along the seam line, making sure to keep it open. After I did a few centimeters, I made sure the lining was folded correctly and then pulled the thread tight, closing the 2 pieces together. This was kind of cool to see and very fun to do. Since the bottom of the coat was made up of random cuts of fabric, I needed to cut them all to the same length. I found which panel was the shortest and cut a piece of paper to match it. I went around the skirt and marked where each piece went over this line and temporarily pinned them. I thought this would make the skirt of the coat the same length all the way around, but looking in the mirror it was atrocious. Thankfully I was able to have someone else wear the coat and stand there while I crawled on the floor and repin the coat, so everything ended up the same length. I finished attaching the lining to the coat, then realised that I didn't cut it long enough, so cut up scraps of the trim I left over to try extend it to reach. It was close, but I had just enough material left. I made 4 pattern pieces. I cut each one out twice, once normally and once flipped. Each version was labelled with chalk so I didn't get them mixed up. Since I went straight from cutting to sewing, I didn't feel the need to sew a guide in coloured thread, since the chalk wouldn't be rubbed off so quickly. With all 8 pieces done, it was time to attach them. I trimmed away excess fabric following the curve of the coat and then laid out the pieces that I was going to attach. I used the ladder stitch here as well, and I was enjoying it so much that I was too focused on it going well to realise that I missed a couple pins, and actually sewed them into the coat. Don't worry though, I found them later on and managed to get them out. Since the material was sturdier, it gave a cleaner edge. When I got to the corners, I wanted to keep them fairly pointy, so pulled out and cut extra fabric that could get in the way. Sewing the triangles at the end were a little tricky, and I think I just kept sewing and pulling the material tight until it closed in a way that looked alright. I left the trim unconnected from the lining while I planned out what I wanted the inside to look like. Moving the coat around, I was happy to see that the movement actually was reminiscent of wings, so went ahead with that. Originally, I wanted the trim to frame the wings, but I only had just enough fabric scraps to do a line along the bottom. I took a few screenshots of my test video and drew over them to try get a sense of what shape I wanted the wing to be. Using some yellow yarn, I pinned an outline onto the coat. The first attempt was too jagged, the second was too flat, and I just kept pinning and repinning. I actually liked this one, but had to take everything out later so I could sew close the inside of the coat. I tucked the seam allowance inside and stitched the 2 fabrics together. I tried my best to have a clean line between them. I made sure to line up the seams so the section of the lining panels flowed onto the trim, so the pieces looked more harmonious. Because the lining was thinner and had more give, I stretched that material when things didn't completely go together as it was more forgiving. Here's a quick halfway. With the lining attached, I tried on the coat to make sure the structure hadn't changed. I liked how the lining looked and considered leaving it as is, but decided to go forward with the embroidery anyway just to see. I pulled out my box of yarn and collected any one that I thought could work. I then laid the coat down and pinned the string down onto it. Once I was happy with the shape, I took a photo of it to plan my next step. I drew little stars around the line, then considered changing the line for a constellation. Turning to the coat, I began to sew a dotted line. That bit was easy enough, but the stars were really hard to figure out. Because the coat was already together, whenever I had to change yarn, I just poked the ends inside the coat, hoping that they'd stay put. This is the right side done. I kind of felt like the gaps in the line makes the wings lose its shape. I also didn't like embroidering all those stars, I just found it really difficult and boring. Maybe I'm getting tired of sewing. To make the other side even, I traced the shape of the line and cut it out. Because the fabric kept moving slightly, this made it uneven, so I had to just measure with offcuts of yarn and draw it by hand. Once the line was in the right place, I noticed that it looked weird how the line stopped so abruptly. To fix this, I embroidered a star. This was to make it look like a shooting star and fit in more. To keep the yarn on the coat, I sewed spirals around it using some sewing thread. This had to be done loosely, as if it was pulled tight then divots would appear on the line. I then began to sew stars around the inner lining, but struggled so much that I weighed whether it was worth it or not. Eventually I decided to just cut them out and leave this problem to solve another time. With everything basically done, it was time to tidy up the odd areas of the coat that needed polishing. I first sewed in the piece at the back of the neck, and then turned to the shoulders, which I've been procrastinating doing. The top of the sleeve slumped off the shoulders and sat under the fabric of the body piece. I wanted a more structured look to make the coat look more formal. Think of going from a hoodie to a suit. I began by re-sewing the top, but that didn't really fix anything. The shape improved slightly, but it created a fold at the top just under the seam. I cut open the lining inside and added a shoulder pad, but it was too flat, so I cut up and combined a couple of them to make them more pronounced. While trying on the coat, I drew a line in chalk where I wanted the seam to be and sewed the shoulder shut along it. I'm trying to fix the weird line things. Oh, I don't know, editing me, show them right now, show them. By just push it, I don't know, I'm just gonna fold it and sew it closed. So instead of being like this when I wear it, the tension should pull it smooth. That's my plan. This took a few tries and a few versions of shoulder pads, but eventually the shoulders were the right shape. Yep, that looks a lot better. And with that, the coat is done. Oh, I'm so happy with it. I can't believe it's taken a whole year of my life. It's a little heavy but easy to put on, a little bit harder when I'm wearing the mask and the wig. In the beginning I set out to make a coat for me, and that's exactly what I've ended up with. It's not tight, but it's made for my proportions exactly, so it's not something that can really be shared. And I like how it fits, I like how it looks. It's comfortable while still looking a little bit formal. I'm not sure how much my research into Victorian and Edwardian coats shone through, but it's enough of a hint for me. I like the spots and the ink motif on the trim of the coat and the sleeves. And I like how the sleeves are just short enough for me to poke my ruffles of my blouse cuffs through from under them. Putting it on, it's very nice and soft, which is good as the outside is a little scratchy. The inner lining panels connect nicely to the rest of the coat, and I think the wings inside look okay. I'd love to hear your opinion on which side looks better though. I'm still on the fence of keeping the wings and adding more stars or removing them altogether. And thank you very much for watching. I've put a lot of effort into these 2 videos of me making this coat, and I'm hoping to only improve as I make more in the future. If you want to see what else I get up to, subscribe, and if you have anything to say, please do comment. I'm PardusEleos. Thank you again, sweet dreams, and make sure to chase them. Goodbye!